the Dar family had always appeared perfect from the outside. Their neighbors often said that if families came with award ribbons, the Dars would win one every year. A peaceful home, 3 generations living together, evening meals cooked with love, and the sound of laughter spilling out of the windows. But homes don't break in one day. They crack slowly, quietly, invisibly, and that is exactly what was happening in the Dar household, especially between Osan, the only son, and his parents, Rafiq and Shahana. Osan had married Merish 2 years earlier. She was gentle, educated, soft-spoken, the kind of daughter-in-law many parents dream of. She never demanded anything, never argued unnecessarily, and treated Rafiq and Shahana with complete respect. But the one thing she couldn't do, no matter how hard she tried, was change Osan. Osan used to be different. He once worked hard, cared for his family, and respected the values he was raised with. But somewhere between wanting more freedom, new friends, and the influence of people who didn't care about him, he drifted away. He started coming home late, stopped sitting with his parents, ignored Mewish's feelings at first. Everyone excused it. He's young, he's stressed, he's figuring life out. But when days turned into months, the excuses stopped making sense. The day everything shifted, one Thursday afternoon, the atmosphere in the house turned cold in a way that no heater could fix. Mewish fainted in the kitchen. Shahana rushed to her, panic flooding her voice. Rafiq helped carry her to the sofa. Someone had to call Osan. Shahana dialed his number. It rang, and rang, and rang. He didn't pick up. She tried again, and again. Still nothing. Finally, after nearly 20 minutes, he answered, not with worry, not with concern, but with irritation. What is it, Ami? I'm busy. Shahana's hands shook. Beta, come home. Mevish is unwell. There was a moment of silence, then a sigh. Ami, she's always unwell. I'm out with friends. I'll come later. The words cut deeper than anything Rafiq or Shahana had ever heard from their son. For the next 3 hours, Rafiq sat beside his daughter, now waiting for Asan to appear in the doorway. He did the end single quotes T. By the time Asan entered the house at 10 p.m., the faint smell of perfume from the girls in his car lingered on his jacket. His hair was styled like he had been out enjoying the world, not like someone worried about his wife. He barely looked at Mevish. Is she okay? He asked, almost pretending to care. Shahana stared at him, the way a mother looks when she realizes her child has grown into someone she no longer recognizes. The quiet breakdown that night. Rafiq sat alone in the verandah. The tube light flickered above him, and the weight of years pressed against his shoulders. He remembered holding Osan as a baby, teaching him to walk, working extra shifts to send him to a good school, sacrificing vacations, new clothes, and even his own health. So his son never felt deprived. And now that same son couldn't spare one evening to check on his own wife. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It just sat in the air like a silent storm waiting to break. When Shahana came outside to check on her husband, she found him wiping the corners of his eyes. He tried to hide it, but she saw everything. We raised him better than this, she whispered. Rafiq nodded slowly. But maybe, he said, voice heavy with exhaustion, we protected him so much that he never learned what responsibility feels like. Mewish's quiet tears while everyone slept. Mewish sat awake in bed, her hands pressed against her chest. She had not told anyone the full truth of her condition. Her health was weakening, her energy was fading, and the emotional stress of her marriage was breaking her faster than any illness. But she kept quiet because that is what she had been taught. A daughter-in-law must endure, must adjust, must stay silent. But silence has a cost. And soon, that cost would fall on the entire family, the line that should never have been crossed. Next morning, something happened that changed everything. A neighbor mentioned casually that Osan had been seen the night before driving around with 2 girls laughing in the car. Shahana's face turned pale, Rafiq's expression hardened, but Osan didn't feel shame. He felt irritation. Why is everyone spying on me? I'm allowed to have friends. Rafiq didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He didn't scold. He simply said, Osan, your wife needed you, and you were out trying to impress strangers. Osan rolled his eyes, and that was the moment a father decided enough was enough. A father's quiet reservoirific waited until dinner. Everyone sat at the table, except Osan, who came late, as usual. When Osan finally joined them, scrolling through his phone, Rafiq spoke with a calmness that made the room fall silent. Osan, tomorrow morning, I want you to sit with me. We need to talk about your marriage. about your responsibilities, about the road you're walking down. Osan looked up, surprised, almost offended. Abu, can't this wait? I have plans. Rafiq's voice did not waver. No, this time, your plans can wait. Osan opened his mouth to argue, but something in his father's eyes stopped him. For the first time in years, he realized he might have pushed too far. Tomorrow would bring a confrontation he was not prepared for. Tomorrow, a father would say the words that would shake the ground beneath his son. This was the moment everything began to change. The next morning, a strange kind of silence settled over the Dar household. Not the normal kind, but the heavy, waiting kind. It felt like the air itself knew something important was about to happen. Rafiq woke early. He prayed. He sat quietly for a long time, gathering the strength he needed as a father. This wasn't a conversation he wanted to have. This was a conversation he had to have. On the other side of the house, Osan was still asleep, one hand lazily dangling off the bed, his phone glowing beside him with unread messages from his friends. He was not expecting confrontation. He was not expecting consequences. He was not expecting his father, the man who always forgave him, to finally stand firm. Osan wakes to reality at 10:30 a.m. Shahana gently knocked on Osan's door. Osan, your Abu is waiting for you. He groaned, annoyed. 5 more minutes. But when Shahana didn't leave, he forced himself out of bed. He dragged a hand across his tired eyes and muttered, "What's the big deal now?" Shahana didn't reply. Her silence said everything. Osan entered the drawing room expecting a lecture. What he found was worse. Rafiq wasn't angry, he wasn't shouting, he wasn't pacing, he was sitting calmly, hands folded, as if preparing for something sacred. It unsettled Osan more than any yelling could have. "Sit," Rafiq sighed. Osan sought the father's words. Rafiq cleared his throat. "Asun, I won't talk as a father today. I will talk as a man to another man." Osan frowned. "Abu, this is unnecessary." "No," Rafiq said softly. "This is years late." He leaned forward. "When I married your mother, I had nothing. No money, no comfort, no guarantees, but I had responsibility. When she was sick, I stayed. When she was tired, I helped. When she was scared, I supported her. That is what marriage means." Osan sighed impatiently. "I know all this. Do you?" Rafiq asked gently. "Then, where were you yesterday?" Osan's jaw tightened. "I was out." "I told you, you were out driving around with girls," Rafiq corrected quietly, "while your wife lay unconscious." Osan stiffened. "People exaggerate." Rafiq's voice cut him off, not loud, but painfully steady. When a man has to defend where he was, instead of feeling ashamed, then there is something deeply wrong inside him. Osan swallowed, the first flicker of discomfort spreading across his features. Rafiq continued, "You may not realize this today, but one day you will look back and regret that you weren't there for the woman who needed you most." The son's denialism stood up abruptly. "Abu, you're making this bigger than it is. I'm only 27. I have a life. I have friends. I can't spend every minute babysitting someone who gets emotional over every little thing." Shah, who had been standing near the doorway, gasped softly. Rafiq's heart cracked, not because of the words, but because of who they were coming from. "Your wife isn't emotional," Rafiq said firmly. "She is exhausted. She is fighting a battle you don't even care to understand." Osan scoffed. "I don't need this drama. I'm leaving." He turned to walk away. Rafiq's next words froze him mid-step. "If you walk out of this room, Ace, then don't expect this house to shield your wrongs anymore." Osan spun around. "You're choosing her over your own son." Rafiq's face softened with unbearable sadness. "No, Beta, I'm choosing what is right." The mother speaks. Hana stepped forward, her eyes full of tears she had held back for months. "Osan, I stayed silent because you're my only child. But a mother's silence is not approval. Every night your wife cried silently so we wouldn't hear her. Every morning she smiled so you wouldn't feel burdened. She took a shaky breath, and you rewarded her with neglect." Asan's confidence faltered. "Ami, I didn't mean to hurt anyone." "But you did," she whispered. "Not only her, us too. We didn't raise you to be careless with someone else's heart." Osan looked away, fists clenching. Miwish overhears everything at that very moment. Miwish was standing behind the hallway wall, weak, pale, clutching her dupatta. She hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but these were words she had waited 2 years to hear. She wasn't happy. She wasn't smug. She wasn't pleased that Osan was finally being confronted. She was simply tired. So tired that hearing people fight over her felt like another burden she didn't want to cause. She quietly walked back to her room. Her steps were slow. Her breathing strained. She didn't want to be the reason a family broke. Breaking point. Back in the drawing room, Rafik exhaled deeply. Osan, if you want this marriage to survive, you need to change. Not for us. Not even for me. You need to change for yourself, so you can look in the mirror and respect the man staring back at you. Osan sat down again, this time trembling slightly. Abu, I don't know how to fix things. That was the first honest sentence he had spoken. Rafik nodded gently, admitting that is the first step. Osan lowered his head. I messed up, didn't I? Rafik whispered. Yes, Beta, but mistakes only define us if we refuse to correct them. Asan's eyes stung, not from guilt alone, but from the sudden understanding that he was losing everything without even realizing it. The friends he tried to impress wouldn't stand by him. The girls who sat in his car didn't care about him. Fun he chased came with emptiness. But the woman who cried for him, the parents who prayed for him, those were the people who mattered, and he had pushed them all away. A decision that shocked the room. Osan said quietly, I want to apologize to her. Properly, truly. Rafik softened. That is good. Beta. Osan hesitated. But I'm scared she won't forgive me. Shah stepped forward and placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. A woman's heart can forgive anything, if the regret is real and the change is permanent. Osan nodded slowly, for the first time feeling the weight of what he had done. I'll talk to her, he said. But Shahana sighed. She isn't in her room. Osan frowned. Where is she? Shahana pointed toward the backyard. She's outside, crying. Osan's chest tightened. He had made his wife cry before, but this time the thought hurt him. Deeply. He stood up to go to her, but Rafik's voice stopped him once more. He turned. Go to her with humility, not justification. Osan nodded. And stepped toward the hardest conversation of his life. The walk toward her. Osan stepped through the backyard door, and the sunlight felt harsh on his eyes. Or maybe that harshness was coming from inside him, where regret had begun to grow like a burning coal. The backyard was quiet. Only the wind moved, brushing through the rose bushes. Mewish used to tend before her health worsened. He saw her sitting on the bench, near the old guava tree. Her shoulders were slumped. Her dupatta was wrapped tightly around her arms, as if she was holding herself together. She didn't hear him approach. For a moment, Osan froze. This was the same woman who once waited at the door for him, who ironed his shirts with careful hands, who smiled even when she was hurting, who believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. And he was the reason she now looked like a ghost of her former self. His throat tightened. He took one step forward, then another. The dry leaves crunched under his feet, and Merish slowly turned her head. Her eyes were still damp, but what hurt Osan most was not the tears. It was the emptiness behind them. She wasn't angry, she wasn't bitter, she wasn't expecting anything from him anymore. She was simply tired. The first words after months of silent season swallowed hard. Maywish. She looked at him, gently, without bitterness, and that kindness was far more painful than anger. Yes. He sat down beside her, leaving a respectful distance. For a few seconds, neither spoke. The wind filled the silence, brushing through the leaves above. I heard you crying, he whispered. Mewish blinked. I wasn't crying loudly. You didn't have to, he replied softly. Your silence was enough. She looked away. Osan, she finally said, you don't have to pretend for me. I know you don't love me. Her words hit him like a blow he never saw coming. I never said that, he protested. You didn't need to, she replied. Your actions spoke far louder. Osan lowered his head, guilt twisting inside him. The apology that broke her. Mewish, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Her eyes softened, but not the way he expected. Osan, I don't need your apology. He looked up, startled. But I mean it, I know, she said, and that's the problem. She wiped her cheek gently. Osan, I'm tired of forgiving things that shouldn't be happening in the first place. He stared at her, speechless. She continued, when you come home late, I forgive you. When you ignore me, I forgive you. When you leave me alone for days, I forgive you. When you come back smelling like perfume from girls who laugh in your car, I forgive you. Her voice cracked. But every time I forgive you, a part of me breaks. Osan felt his chest tighten painfully. I didn't know, he whispered. You didn't want to know, she corrected softly. The illness she never mentioned. Edison, looked at her closely, too closely for the first time in months. Her cheeks were thinner, her lips pale, her breath slightly uneven. Mewish, are you sick? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Asan's heart dropped. Why didn't you tell me? She gave him a sad smile. Because you were never here to listen. His stomach twisted. I would have listened. She gave him a gentle look that silenced him. No, Osan, you were listening to the world, not to the woman living in your home. He felt something inside him collapse. What is wrong with you? He whispered, fear rising in his voice. Mewish looked down at her hands. My doctor says, my lack of rest, the emotional stress, the loneliness, all of it has weakened my immunity. My health is not stable. I get dizzy. Sometimes my chest hurts. Sometimes I can't breathe properly. Osan felt the bench tilt under him. Why didn't anyone tell me? He choked. Your parents know part of it, she said. But not everything. I didn't want to be a burden. A burden, he repeated, horrified. You are my wife. Her eyes glistened again. And you are my husband. But I felt more alone with you than I ever did before marriage. Osan pressed his hands to his face, overwhelmed. The question she feared asking Mushin hailed, shakily. Osan, can I ask you something? He nodded. Why did you marry me? The question pierced through him like a blade. He didn't know how to answer, not because he didn't have reasons, but because his reasons felt shameful now. He married her because it was time, because his parents approved, because she was a good girl, because everyone said it was a perfect match. He never asked himself if he was ready. He never asked if he was mature. He never asked if he could actually be a husband. I don't know, he whispered honestly. Mewish nodded slowly. That's what I thought. A single tear rolled down her cheek. And that's why I stopped expecting anything. She makes a choice he didn't expect. They sat in silence for almost a minute. Finally, Mewish took a slow breath. Osan, I think I need time away. His head jerked up. What? I want to stay at my parents' house for a few days. The words cut him more than he expected. Mewish, please Osan, she said calmly. I don't want a divorce. I don't hate you. I'm not punishing you. She placed her hand over her chest. I just need to breathe. Something in him broke, because for the first time, he realized he might lose her, and not because of anger, not because of revenge, but because she was simply too exhausted to keep holding a marriage he wasn't supporting. He grabbed her hands gently, and she didn't pull away. Give me one chance, he whispered, just one. I'll change. I'll be there. I'll fix everything. She looked at him with a softness that cut deeper than cruelty. Osan, I believe you want to change. He exhaled shakily. But, she continued, I don't know if you know how to change. He breaks down for the first time in years. Osan felt tears sting his eyes. Real, painful, undeserved tears. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. Mewish's expression softened. You already lost pieces of me, she said quietly. I'm only trying to save what's left. He bowed his head, his shoulders shaking. Mewish didn't hug him. She didn't console him. Not because she didn't care, but because she had no strength left to hold. Someone who had never held her when she needed him. The parents watching silently from the window. Rafiq and Shahana watched the entire conversation unfold. Shahana pressed her hand to her chest. Tears forming. Rafiq's jaw tightened with a mix of pain and responsibility. Our son is finally realizing the damage he caused. Shahana whispered. Rafiq nodded slowly. But realization is not enough. He said, he must rebuild what he destroyed, step by painful step. The day she left, the morning Mewish packed her small suitcase, the Dar household felt like someone had pulled the air out of its walls. Everything echoed differently. Every sound felt heavier. Even Osan, who used to walk around the house without noticing anything, felt the emptiness before she even stepped out of the room. She folded her clothes quietly, not in anger, not in haste, just with the painful calmness of someone forcing themselves to do what the heart doesn't want. Osan stood near the doorway, watching her pack. It felt unreal, just a week ago. He was the one leaving the house every night, carelessly walking away without looking back. And today he was scared to let her take a single step away from him. Do you really have to go? He finally whispered. Mehwish paused. Her hand rested on the dupatta she was folding. Asan, I need space to think, and you need space to understand. He felt the truth of her words sink into him, but it didn't make the pain any lighter. She zipped her suitcase gently. Ahsan stepped forward. I'll drop you, he offered. She shook her head softly. No, Abu is coming to pick me. Hassan's chest clenched. Her father, coming inside the house, to take his daughter away. For the first time, Osen felt the humiliation of his actions. He had become the kind of man a girl's father had to rescue her from. He swallowed hard. When will you come back? Mirish didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lifted her suitcase and walked past him, slower than usual, but steady. Osen, she finally said, I will come back when this house feels like a home again, for both of us. Her father's arrival a few minutes later, her father Haji Irfan arrived. A respected man. Wise. But today his eyes carried a heaviness that wasn't there before. He greeted Rafiq and Shahana politely. But the friendliness was missing. He wasn't there as a guest. He was there as a father, concerned for his daughter. Miwish walked toward him, and his expression softened instantly. My child, he whispered, placing a gentle hand on her head. Come, let's go home for a few days. As they turned to leave, Osen stepped forward. Uncle, please, I want to talk. Haji Irfan looked at him, not with anger, but with the calm disappointment that hurts more than shouting. Osen Beta, you will have your chance, but today, I am taking my daughter home. Asen lowered his gaze. Mevish walked out with her father. She didn't look back, and strangely, that hurt Osen more than anything else had. The silence she left behind when the door closed behind her. The house felt different. The sunlight looked dull. The clock seemed louder. Even the walls felt empty. Shahana wiped her tears quietly. Rafiq sat down, exhaling deeply. Osen, he said gently, your wife has gone to heal. Now it is your turn. Osen rubbed his face. I don't know what to do. Rafiq placed a hand on his shoulder. You start by becoming the man she used to pray for, not the man she cried. Because of Osen, felt tears sting the corners of his eyes again. I was blind, Abu. No, Rafiq murmured. You were ungrateful, and that is much worse. The first night without her that night, Osen entered their bedroom for the first time alone. The room smelled like her perfume, mild, floral, comforting. He sat on the bed, staring at her neatly folded dupatta left behind, her hairbrush on the table, her favorite book near the lamp, her slippers under the bed. Her absence wasn't loud, it was painfully silent. He picked up the book she loved, reading a collection of short stories, but inside it, something slipped out. A small note in her handwriting. He unfolded it carefully. It wasn't addressed to him. It wasn't written for anyone. It was simply her thoughts. Maybe one day he will see me. Maybe one day I will matter. Maybe one day he will come home from me and not the world. Osen felt breathless. This was how lonely she had been. This was how unseen she had felt. He realized something then. He hadn't just ignored his wife. He had erased her parents' home. Meanwhile, at her parents' house, Miwish sat quietly in her old room. Her mother brought her tea. My child, did he hurt you? Miwish shook her head. No, Ami, he just forgot me. Her mother's eyes softened with pain. That hurts more, she whispered. That night, Miwish slept for the first time without waiting for someone to come home. Without listening for the sound of the gate opening. Without pretending she wasn't hurt. She thought she would feel free. Instead, she felt broken. Ahsan takes the first step the next morning. Osen woke early, without anyone prompting him. He made his bed, cleaned the room, helped Shahana in the kitchen, sat with Rafiq for tea. He didn't do these things to impress anyone. He did them because something inside him was shifting. Later, he called her father. Uncle, please. I want to apologize properly. I want to visit. Haji Irfan's voice remained steady. Not today, Beta. Give her time, and give yourself time. Osen closed his eyes. I understand. And Osen, her father, added, words are easy. Show me change through your actions. Osen nodded lightly, even though the elder couldn't see him. I will. A week without her days passed, and every day, Osen tried to become better. He returned early from work. He helped his parents. He reflected on his choices. The girls he wasted time with. He stopped going out at night. He even visited the mosque more. But the biggest change was this. He felt lonely. Not because she wasn't there, but because he finally realized how deeply he had taken her presence for granted. At night, he would sit on the bed and stare at the empty side where she slept. Sometimes he would whisper, come back, but the room never answered. The unexpected Kalan, the 8th night, around 9 p.m., his phone buzzed. The screen displayed a name that made his heart beat. quicken.mehwish. His hands trembled as he answered. Before he could say anything, her soft voice came through. Can we talk? He swallowed hard. Anytime. Always. Her next sentence made his breath catch. There's something important. I need to tell you. Asan froze. Her tone wasn't angry. Wasn't cold. Just serious. What is it? He whispered. There was a long pause. Then she said something that changed everything in an instant. Asan, I went to the doctor today. They found something. Asan's entire world stopped. The moment everything stopped, Asan felt the phone slip slightly in his grip. His chest tightened. His breath hitched. His mind raced ahead to dark places that fear always opens. Miwish, what did the doctor say? He asked, voice trembling. There was a moment of silence, not heavy, just careful. Miwish inhaled softly. They found a deficiency, she said, a serious one. My body is extremely weak because of stress, lack of rest, and emotional strain. Asan closed his eyes, guilt pressing on him like a weight. Is it dangerous? He whispered. It can be, if I don't take care of myself, she replied gently. But it's treatable. I'll need medication, proper meals, and peace of mind. Peace of mind, the one thing she didn't have in his home. And Asan, she added. The doctor asked if anything was affecting me emotionally. I didn't want to lie. His fingers tightened around the phone. What did you tell him? He asked, voice cracking. Miwish exhaled a long, tired breath. I told him that my husband and I are not emotionally connected, that I feel alone. Asan pressed his hand against his forehead. He deserved that truth. But hearing it still felt like someone twisting a knife inside his chest. Her next words cut deeper. Asan, she said softly, I didn't call to blame you. He swallowed hard. I called because the doctor asked me if my environment is safe for my recovery, and I didn't know how to answer. Asan felt his heart drop to the floor. It is safe, he said quickly. I'll make it safe. I'll do anything you need. I'll change. I don't want promises, she interrupted gently. I want reality. I want peace. I want a home where I don't feel invisible. Asan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. You will never be invisible again. She was silent for a moment. I want to believe you, she whispered, but right now, belief feels difficult. Asan felt like the walls of the room were closing in. He had hurt her so deeply that she couldn't even trust his sincerity anymore. He asks the hard question, took a shaky breath. Do you want to come back home? His heart pounded, waiting, praying. Miwish didn't answer immediately. She wasn't avoiding, she was choosing her words carefully, because for the first time, her heart mattered to her as much as his did. Asan, I want to come back someday, she said gently, but I can't. Come back to the old version of us. Asan blinked away tears. And I can't come back, until I'm sure you won't drift away again. Her honesty broke him more than anger ever could. Father enters the room and her end of the call. Haji Irfan softly knocked and stepped into her room. He noticed her holding the phone, eyes glistening. Is it Aya? He asked. She nodded. He sat beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Tell him the truth, Beta, he said quietly. No marriage survives on silence. Miwish nodded and wiped her tears, steadying herself easy. She said, Abu is here. He wants to talk to you. Asan's heart skipped. Gee, I'm here. Her father's calm, deep voice came through the phone. Asan Beta, how are you? Asan swallowed. Ashamed uncle, and sorry. The elder man sighed, not angry, just tired. I know you are sorry, but sorry is not enough anymore. My daughter needs peace, more than she needs promises. I understand, Asan said quietly. I hope you do, her father replied gently. I am not taking her away from you. I am giving both of you space to heal. Asan nodded even though he knew they couldn't see him. I want her back, he whispered. I want to take care of her. You can, her father said, but only when you are ready to be the husband she deserves. Asan closed his eyes. I will prove it. Her father spoke softly, almost like a prayer. I hope your actions speak louder than your regret. The call ends, and something begins when the call ended. Asan sat on the bed, feeling both shattered and determined. Shattered, because he finally understood how deeply he had bruised her heart. Determined, because he would spend every day proving that he could be better. He pressed the phone to his forehead. Ya Allah, he whispered, give me the strength to fix this. The mother's prayer outside Asan's room. Shahana stood silently, tears slipping down her face. She had overheard enough to understand. She walked to the prayer mat and raised her hands. Ya, bring peace to their home. bring love back into their hearts, bring maturity into my son's life, and bring healing to my daughter-in-law. Her voice trembled, and please, don't let their marriage fall apart. Mewish's quiet resolve. At her parents' home, Mewish placed her phone on the bedside table and exhaled shakily. She wasn't angry at Osen. She wasn't punishing him. She was protecting what little remained of her spirit. For the first time, she whispered to herself, I matter too. And that single sentence felt like a new beginning. She had denied herself for far too long. Osen makes a decision later that night. Osen stood before the mirror in his room. He stared at his reflection. Really stared, maybe for the first time in years. He didn't see the charming, carefree guy his friends hyped him up to be. He saw a man who had broken the heart of someone, who deserved nothing but tenderness. And he made a decision right there. He would rebuild his marriage from the ground up, not with words, with actions. With consistency, with responsibility. Not for pity. Not out of fear, but because he finally understood the value of the love he had ignored. A slow, icy silence spread across the house as evening settled. The entire family had returned home, after the intense confrontation between Aries Marnour's parents and Aisha, the young girl whose message had spiraled everything out of control. Yet nothing was actually over. If anything, everything had begun unraveling now. The house felt wrong, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for the next explosion of truth. Even the shadows seemed heavier. Aries walked into his old bedroom, the room he had shared with Marnour during the early days of their marriage, and as he stepped inside, a rush of memories hit him so fiercely that he stumbled. He touched the side of the dresser. Marnour used to keep a small, handmade jewelry box here, a plain wooden square, carved clumsily like someone inexperienced had done it, because she had made it when she was 14 at school. Inside that box she used to keep tiny notes folded into heart shapes, notes she had written for him over the years. He reached for the drawer. It was still there. He opened it, and a small folded heart slipped out and landed near his foot. He picked it up, his hands shaking. On it, in her handwriting, were the words, Aries, someday, when you feel lost, open this. His eyes filled instantly. He hesitated, then slowly unfolded it. Inside was only one line, I choose you, even when you don't choose yourself. Aries pressed the note against his forehead, as a sound escaped him, a broken breath that was halfway between a sob and a plea. He slid to the floor, back against the dresser, head dropped into his hands. Everything he had done, every reckless moment, every selfish choice, every lie he had allowed himself to believe. He wanted to rewind time, hold Marnour's hand, take her to her doctor appointments himself, sit by her bed every night, listen to her fears instead of numbing his own. He wanted to choose differently, but life did not give only consequences. The living room, same TME downstairs. Ion Marnour's brother paced back and forth, unable to stay still. His mother sat huddled on the couch, occasionally wiping tears, while his father silently stared at the wall, fingers interlocked tightly. And then, the doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Ion opened the door, and there stood Aisha, the girl whose text messages had detonated Aries' marriage like dynamite. Her eyes were red, face swollen, breath shaking. In her hand, she clutched her phone. I need to talk, she whispered. Ayaan hesitated but stepped aside. She entered the living room slowly, as if walking into a courtroom. Marnour's father stood. Yes, he asked, voice formal, cold, but not cruel. Aisha swallowed hard. I know you all hate me, she began, and you should, but I didn't come to defend myself. I came because I think you need to know everything. Ion narrowed his eyes. We already know, he snapped. You had something going on with Aries, while my sister was no. She cut in quickly, tears spilling again. Please, let me finish. I swear on God, there was nothing like that. Silence. Marnour's mother looked slightly confused. Aisha continued, voice trembling but firm. I wasn't flirting with Aries. I wasn't trying to steal him. I wasn't meeting him in secret. I wasn't in love with him. She looked directly at Marnour's father. My messages, they weren't what you think. She slowly held out her phone. Please let someone read the full conversation, not the screenshots his friend gave you, the actual, entire chat. Ion snatched the phone immediately. He scrolled. His eyes widened, and then widened more. His breath became uneven. Marnour's mother stood up, anxious. What is it? What does it say? Ion's voice dropped. These messages, they're not romantic at all. He kept scrolling. Lines of the chat appeared friendly, cautious, professional, but nothing inappropriate. They're about work, about college, about project submissions. She keeps calling him sir. She keeps maintaining distance. She even refused to meet him once because it didn't look appropriate. He turned the screen toward them, and she literally tells him to go home early and check on his wife. She sounds tired today. Marnur's mother gasped softly. Her father closed his eyes. Aisha spoke again, voice barely audible. Someone deliberately twisted everything. Ion stiffened. Someone sent us edited screenshots, he whispered. Someone wanted us to hate Aries. Aisha nodded slowly, and someone wanted me to look guilty too. A cold wave swept the entire room. A name immediately came to all their minds, but none spoke it yet. The silence was terrifying. Marnur's father looked at Aisha. Why come now? He asked. Why? Tell us this. Aisha's voice cracked. Because Aries looked destroyed today, and I realized lies are about to ruin a man who doesn't deserve to be ruined. Upstairs, Aries' breakdowners was still sitting on the floor of the bedroom, the small note trembling in his hands. Every muscle in him ached from guilt. He whispered to the empty room, Marnu, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. He imagined her smiling, the smile she reserved only for him, gentle and forgiving. He imagined her voice. It's not too late to be better. He closed his eyes tightly, forcing down the sob lodged in his throat. I don't know how. He whispered back helplessly to the memory of her. I don't know how to fix this. How to undo the pain. And then, a sudden quake of realization hit him. There was only one person who could have twisted the messages. Only one who hated how much he loved Marnur. Only one who wanted Marnur gone from the picture. Only one who wanted full control over Aries' life, from his decisions to his identity. His own mother. He felt the breath leave his body. My God, he gasped. Everything clicked. Every small comment, every complaint she made about Marnur, every time she encouraged him to stay out longer, every time she interfered. She had always wanted him away from MyHNOR. But to manipulate chats, to plant doubts while Marnur was critically ill. How far had she gone? He stood abruptly, adrenaline burning through him. He needed to confront her. He needed answers. He needed truth. Downstairs, when Truth Scolidarius descended the stairs, just as Aisha finished explaining how she discovered that someone was accessing her account from another device weeks ago, the moment he stepped into the living room, everyone fell silent. Aisha quickly wiped her face and stood. I didn't come to create more problems, she said quietly to him, only to clear mine. Aries gave a faint nod, unable to speak yet. His father-in-law handed him Aisha's phone. Aries, he said gently, read it. Aries scrolled. Every message shattered a misconception he had believed about himself. The guilt he had been suffocating under suddenly felt misdirected, and then, a voice from behind them made everyone freeze. What is going on here? They turned. Aries' mother stood at the entrance, her face stiff, her eyes sharp, her lips pressed tightly together. Ion muttered under his breath. Of course she would appear now. She ignored him, eyes locked on Aries. You're all believing her, she demanded, pointing at a girl who clearly had her eyes on a married man. Aisha flinched, but Aries stepped forward slowly. Amy, he said softly but firmly, did you edit my chats? His mother's eyes flashed. What nonsense. Why would Aisha's account was accessed by someone using your old phone model? She froze for half a second, a tiny, barely noticeable moment, but enough for everyone to catch it. Aries felt his chest tighten. Amy, he whispered, please don't make me ask again. Her breath trembled. Marnur's mother stepped back, one hand clutching her scarf. Ion clenched his jaw, and then, Aries' mother broke. Her voice came out trembling, defensive, almost panicked. I only did it because I wanted to protect you. Aries felt the world tilt. Protect him, she continued desperately. That girl was getting too close to you. I saw it. I heard things. I didn't want her ruining your marriage. I didn't want more trouble for you. I thought if everyone believed she was the problem, it would distract from your tension with Marnur. I thought, her voice cracked. I thought I was saving you. A stunned silence fell. Aries swallowed hard. Saving me, by destroying my wife's peace while she was dying. His mother looked shaken, as if the weight of her actions had just crashed onto her shoulders. I didn't know she was that unwell, she rasped. Riz shook his head slowly. No, Amy, you didn't want to know. She stepped back, as if struck. I loved Marnur, she protested weakly. No, Aries said softly. You loved the version of my life where you controlled everything. Her tears spilled. Aries closed his eyes, and then he said it, gently, painfully, but finally with clarity. You cost Manu a peace during her last days, and you cost me the chance to be the husband I should have been. His mother sobbed quietly, realizing the enormity of what she'd done, and the room fell into a silence thick with heartbreak. Nothing more needed to be said. Everything had shattered. The house felt like a courtroom after the verdict had been read. Heavy, breathless, silent. Aries' mother stood near the doorway, her shoulders trembling, her eyes darting between all the faces staring back at her. For the first time in her life, she looked small. Aries stood in the center of the room, still holding the phone with Aisha's messages, the proof of everything. When he spoke, his voice was low, steady, but vibrating with heartbreak. Amy, why didn't you trust me enough to talk to me? Why manipulate? Why twist things? His mother's lips trembled. I didn't think you'd listen, she whispered. You always defended Ma, always stood by her, even when I felt pushed aside. I thought you didn't need me anymore. Everyone froze. Because finally, the truth of her insecurity surfaced. Ayaan stared in disbelief. Marner's mother pressed her lips together, fighting tears. Aisha stood still, hands clenched together. Aries exhaled slowly. Needing you, he said gently, has nothing to do with hurting someone else. His mother shook her head vigorously, tears falling fast. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted you back. I wanted the version of my son who came to me for everything, who shared everything with me. She took a shaky breath. When you married Marner, she became your world. I was happy for you. I thought I was, but then, you became distant. You changed. You grew up. You didn't need me the same way anymore. And I didn't know how to handle that. Her confession hung in the air. Painful, raw, human. Aries felt a sting in his chest, but it wasn't anger, it was grief. Grief for all the years wasted in misunderstanding. Grief for the silent competitions his mother fought without telling him. Grief for the space he didn't realize she felt she lost. Even so, none of it justified what she had done. Aries stepped closer. Amy, he said softly, I never stopped loving you, but I also wanted to be a good husband. Why did that make you feel replaced? She covered her face with her hands. Because I've lived my whole life believing a son is a mother's anchor. I didn't know how to share you. A long, trembling silence settled. Marnor's father spoke gently. Sister, loving your son is natural, but a mother's love becomes dangerous when it blinds her to the pain she causes. Aries' mother cried harder. I didn't know my actions would grow so big. I didn't know it would push everyone so far. I swear I didn't. Aries closed his eyes. He believed her. He truly did. But that didn't erase the consequences. The moment Aries finally breaks, Aries sat down slowly, exhausted. He placed the phone on the table and buried his face in his hands. I lost her, he whispered, voice cracking. Marner, she spent her final days thinking I didn't care, thinking I was drifting away, thinking I wasn't choosing her. His throat tightened painfully. Do you know how that feels? To realize the person you loved more than life spent her last days, hurting because of lies that could have been stopped. His mother collapsed onto the nearest chair, covering her mouth as sobs escaped her. Aisha turned away, unable to watch. Aion leaned against the wall, head bowed, eyes glowing with fresh tears. Marnoor's mother closed her eyes tightly, whispering prayers under her breath. Aries' voice lowered into a trembling whisper. She trusted me with everything, and I failed her without even knowing I was failing. He pressed his palms against his eyes to stop himself from completely breaking. Aries' mother stepped toward him slowly. My son, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He didn't move. He didn't look at her. He just whispered, sorry doesn't bring her back. His mother fell to her knees in front of him, crying openly. It was the most heartbreaking thing anyone had seen. Aisha's confession. Aisha suddenly cleared her throat, her voice small but determined. Everyone keeps blaming me for things I didn't even do, she said quietly. I was only trying to keep things professional. But that day Marnoor called me. Aries lifted his head abruptly. What? He asked. Everyone turned toward her. Aisha's fingers fidgeted nervously as she spoke. She called me 2 weeks before she passed. She said she wanted to talk. She sounded tired, but calm. Aries felt his breath catch. What did she say to you? Aisha swallowed. She told me that she didn't blame me for anything. She said she knew you weren't the type of man to cheat. She said you were struggling with stress, with fear, with guilt, and she didn't want to burden you. Aries stood up slowly, every vein in his body trembling. What else? He whispered. Aisha looked down. She said she hoped that after she was gone, someone would remind you you're still worthy of love. A sharp, quiet gasp escaped Marnor's mother. Aries felt the world go blurry, and she said one last thing. Aisha whispered, tears sliding down her face. She said, tell Aries, I know he tried, even if he doesn't believe he did. Aries staggered back a step. His heart broke open violently, painfully, completely. He pressed a hand against his chest as if trying to hold himself together. Marnia, he whispered shakily, she was still protecting me. Even then, he couldn't stand anymore. He sat down heavily, face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking. Aries's mother sobbed into her scarf. Marnur's father placed a hand over his wife's. Aisha quietly stepped back, giving them space. The room felt like a wound, open, raw, bleeding truth. The DECICO, and after what felt like an hour of silence, Aries finally looked up. His eyes were swollen, his voice was drained. He faced his mother. Ami, I will never stop being your son. I will always love you, but right now, I need space. Her face crumpled. Aries, please. He shook his head gently. No, not as punishment, but so I can breathe, so I can heal, so you can reflect. She clutched her scarf, tears streaming. I understand, she whispered. It broke her, but she accepted it. Aries turned to Marnor's parents next. I want to make things right, he said steadily. I can't change the past, but I want to honor her memory. I want to rebuild trust. I want to earn your forgiveness, even if it takes me years. Her father nodded slowly, eyes wet but soft. That's all we ever wanted. And then, for the first time since Marnor's passing, Aries felt a tiny spark of purpose inside him. A small, trembling step toward healing. But the storm wasn't over. Because the truth of what his mother had done wasn't the only thing buried in that house. There was still one more secret waiting to explode. A secret that would shake everything again. And this time, no one would be ready for it. The night after the confrontation felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, but the kind of quiet after a storm, when broken branches still lie scattered on the ground and the air carries the heavy smell of rain and regret. Aries barely slept. He sat on the living room sofa until dawn, staring at the wall as though the answers he needed were hidden inside the paint. Around him, the house was still. Marnor's parents, resting in the guest room, Ion sleeping on the couch across from him, Aisha having left with a heavy heart, and his mother in her room, devastated, crushed beneath the weight of her own choices. But even as silence settled, there was still something left unresolved, something unfinished, something he could no longer ignore. It was time to read Marnor's last letter. The letter she wrote when she knew time was short. Had found it months earlier, tucked inside her Quran, but he had never gathered the courage to open it. The envelope had his name on it in her soft handwriting. For Aries, when I'm gone. Those words had felt like knives.